Thank you very much, Cheryl. We are here in the studio today. We're so happy to be joined by veteran network entertainment reporter and talk show host Bobby Rivers. He was the first African American to get his own primetime talk show on VH1, and Lucille Ball was a fan. Welcome, Bobby.
Heath, nice to be here. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for joining us today to talk about Lucille Ball.
I loved Lucille Ball, and she was so significant to me. You know, as a kid who grew up in South Central LA, and I was a child of the Civil Rights era, of the diversity that was on the show. And here's what I'm talking about. When I was a kid and I would watch it and of course would laugh, but I also wondered if people realized that in the 1950s, we fell in love with the Ricardos, an interracial marriage, a bilingual household, and they had a biracial little boy, you know, that we fell in love with and called Little Ricky. That was very significant, and it was important to me because when you think about it, that kind of diversity we didn't see 40 years later on shows like Friends, which was also about characters in New York City.
Well, and that's why I think this is so important, is that she was so groundbreaking in bringing diversity when you just didn't see it, sometimes even in your own neighborhood. Now, you lived in a neighborhood where you saw this every day.
Yeah, I did. We had Latino neighbors and friends and teachers and doctors and merchants. But, you know, that was really different for TV at that time. To have it, it really was an interracial marriage. And Lucille Ball said, "I'm not funny. What I am is brave." And I think besides the bravery as an actress, there was that bravery as a person fighting for a project that she believed in. And I Love Lucy, I feel, opened the door for other non-Anglo sitcom dads like Danny Thomas, Bill Cosby, Bernie Mac, George Lopez, and I think Modern Family owes a nice tip of the hat to Lucille Ball too.
Well, and this is the kind of insight that hopefully you have come to expect to see on public television. You don't see this on other channels. The ability to go behind the scenes, look at the inspiration behind performers that you have grown to know and love. And that's the magic of Lucy and some of the diversity that she has brought to television. Thank you, Cheryl. Once again, we are joined in the studio by entertainment reporter Bobby Rivers. Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here, Heath.
Now, I want to talk about something pretty exciting.
Yeah.
St. Patrick's Day, 1989.
1989.
And you picked up the phone and made a call to someone pretty special.
Right. I was calling a friend of mine who was staying with relatives. And the relative answered the phone. Hello? It was Lucille Ball. So Lucille Ball answers the phone, and my buddy Lee Tannen, who was related to Gary Martin, had told me to call him there. And I said, "Hi, this is Bobby Rivers. Is Lee Tannen there, please?" And he said, "That's the guy on VH1. Lucy had watched me when I was on VH1, and I had a talk show, and she said, "I saw your interview with Sally Field. It was really good. What are you doing for cocktail hour? Want to come over and let's have drinks?" So I'm headed over to Roxbury Drive to Lucille Ball's home, and I sat with her for an hour, and of course, it was sensational. You know, one thing she said, we were talking about comedy, and she said, people need a good laugh like they need a good doctor. And we talked about one of her old movies that I think we saw a clip of in tonight's American Masters. And I said, you know, if I had a revival theater, I would do a double bill of The Big Street and Midnight Cowboy, which she loved. And The Big Street is my favorite Lucille Ball movie. It's not a comedy, but I loved her dramatic performance with Henry Fonda in that. And like in Midnight Cowboy, she's a character who's disabled and wants to get to Miami.
You know, you bring up an interesting point that she's done a wide variety of shows, from dramatic roles to what we, of course, most of us know as her almost slapstick, hands down, and physical comedy roles.
And she learned in every genre, and I think she put it into that TV performance. But and you know what's you see the early films where she's a bit player, and then later, I mean, who knew that she was going to become the
starring role?
It's amazing. And spent an hour with her. And she was devoted to her fans. She was answering fan mail, and she said, "If not for the fans, I would not have this house." And at the time, I'd been staying at a hotel that was full of rock stars, and I asked the rock stars for like a minute to do a soundbite that we could air on VH1. One famous rock star said, he just kind of like, I don't have time. But Lucille Ball, who was famous before Springsteen, before he and I were born, invited me over and treated me like an old buddy for an hour in her home.
It's an inspirational story, and the inspiration that you get from it. And we heard from Cheryl earlier about the inspiration that her students get from watching these programs and feeling like, you know what, I can do that too. I can be a strong presence. So we want to talk about what inspires you. And Cheryl is over in the phone bank with our wonderful volunteers, and she's got some more information and a very important question about what inspires you when you think about KVIE. Thank you, Cheryl. Well, so before we talk to Bobby again, I want to give you another little piece of trivia. Our producer tonight, Kelly Peterson, she's back in the control room producing. Her grandfather was Harry Ackerman. Now, he was instrumental as a driving force behind I Love Lucy and many of the shows that you've seen growing up. And Kelly brought in this wonderful picture that you're seeing right now. That's Desi Arnaz, Lucille Ball in the middle, and then Harry giving her a big kiss while Desi looks on in a kind of a fake grimace there. It's a wonderful little bit of insight that we wanted to share with you tonight. But we also want to talk about, again, the influence of Lucille Ball. Now, she worked with a lot of great co-stars. Vivian Vance, of course, someone she had a long relationship with, and influenced greatly in her own development of her characters and her life.
Lucille Ball's impact on Vivian Vance fascinates me because Vivian Vance had a career that went back to the 1930s on Broadway. Vivian Vance was Ethel Merman's understudy in Cole Porter's Anything Goes. She did Broadway. She worked with Danny Kaye on Broadway. Then she does movies in the early 1950s, and nothing really clicks for Vivian. So she does this movie called The Blue Veil. The stars are Jane Wyman, who by that time had a Best Actress Academy Award, got an Oscar nomination for The Blue Veil, and Charles Laughton. Vivian Vance plays the wife to Laughton's character. And so she's got key scenes with both stars, but her name is way down in the credits. And this is 1951. 2 years later, she would be just as famous as those two because of playing Ethel Mertz on I Love Lucy. And her career in her early 40s, when most actresses would have thought, well, nothing's happened, I'm just going to call it a day, her career caught fire.
Well, you can't help but catch fire when you're dressed up with Lucille Ball in an alien costume.
As a Martian.
Dancing around in front of other people with a made-up language.
I showed that to my two fabulous nephews. Hi, Eli. Hi, Theo. I showed them Lucille Ball dressed as a Martian at the top of the Empire State Building. And they said, who is she? I said, she was an actress and a producer.
And an amazing performer. And our friend Cheryl Watson, she's also an amazing performer. She is over in the phone bank right now, and she's got some great information about the benefits of supporting KVIE. Thank you, Cheryl. We hope that you are going to the phone and making your call of support right now. We're back live with Bobby Rivers. We've just finished this incredible American Masters program. And I want to talk to you about her influence as the first studio lead.
Well, you know what? Last weekend, Tom Cruise was #1 at the box office, and he has Lucille Ball to thank for that.
Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible. Okay, if you look at a Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers movie, if you look at Top Hat and Follow the Fleet, you see a blonde bit player, Lucille Ball. Okay, bit parts, 1930s. 15 years later, she owned that studio. RKO became Desilu Productions. So Lucille Ball, besides being on TV as Lucy Ricardo going, ooh, she was also the first woman to head a studio. And as the head of Desilu, she gave a green light to The Untouchables, Star Trek,
my personal favorite,
Star Trek, and Mission Impossible. And those 3 TV series, there were film adaptations.
Well, and what we saw in today's American Masters, it wasn't that she loved being in front of stockholders.
Exactly.
It wasn't that she loved running a board meeting, but she did it. She had that passion. She had this idea in her head, I'm going to make this the way that I want to make it. Of course, what we all grew to love was her comedy, her acting, her personality right there on the screen. What do you think is her legacy to entertainment?
You know, I look at the I Love Lucy episodes still today, and they seem so fresh. They're like Fellini films. They're like classic Fellini films. Her attention to comedy was so pure. And like when I visited her, when I was lucky enough to be invited to her home, I could tell that she took the business of comedy seriously. She didn't think, I'm really funny. She played it I understand why she was an inspiration to Meryl Streep. And I think her legacy is to doing that. She broke a glass ceiling. She was truly an American pioneer.
Well, and I want to talk about this book again because this is a great way that you can share in the legacy of Lucille Ball. This wonderful book, The Life of Lucille Ball, when you make a donation of support today at the $55 level, you will receive this wonderful biography created specifically for fans of Lucille Ball. You'll learn about her life, her upbringing, her struggles through her marriage to Desi Arnaz, and how she overcame and became the power player in the entertainment industry that we all really didn't see because we saw her public face in I Love Lucy. We're joined in the studio by Cheryl Watson. She's over with our wonderful phone bank of volunteers, and she's going to tell us now how you can make your donation of support to KVIE.